Everyone from the Eastern Cape can find a relative to relocate to a voting address in Cape Town. Our families are big enough, we'll still have more than enough people in the Eastern Cape. These were the shocking words this week of Mzwanele, Manyi, an EFF MP, and of course formerly a civil servant and ANC member, and infamous for his previous comments. There's too many coloured people in the Western Cape, and to avoid the impact of affirmative action, that they should spread themselves out over South Africa. My name's Phil Craig, and I'm the leader of the Referendum Party, and I want to talk to you about these comments today in the context of Cape independence. And at the heart of the battle for Cape independence are two concepts which we find in international law. The first is the concept of ideological affinity. The second is the concept of self-determination. Of course, they're related, and these comments illustrate the importance of both. So ideological affinity is the recognition that specific groups of people will have a shared set of values and will want to live in a certain way according to a certain set of rules, and that will differ from group to group. And self-determination is the right that all of these groups of people have a right to steer their own ship, to be master of their own destiny. And it's particularly important for minority groups, ideological minority groups in this case, in a democracy, and it stops them being dominated by the majority group. And Cape independence, therefore, is in the fight for both of this. We know the Western Cape has this different ideological affinity to the rest of South Africa. We know that by how the Western Cape has voted, for 30 years, the majority of Western Cape voters have never once endorsed the ANC, when of course the other provinces habitually elect the ANC. So the Western Cape people have this different ideological affinity, and they have a right to self-determination. Now, what we see here from these comments from Manyi, which are disgraceful, is actually the active planning to deny the people of the Western Cape their democracy. We're not even talking about fighting in the Western Cape for people to adopt the set of views that he believes in. He's actually asking people who are outside of the Western Cape to effectively rig the system in order to actively deny the people of the Western Cape their democratic will. And this is imperialism, colonialism, and actually in South Africa with this history of dispossessing people and removing their democratic agency. Something that he, in theory, has fought against. Is absolutely shocking that now he is trying to impose this imperialism, this effectively racial imperialism onto the Western Cape, and say, look, you know what, people in the Western Cape cannot be governed according to their democratic. We have to rig the system so that they cannot choose what it is that they want for themselves. And of course, this is absolutely terrible. If Manyi was the only person doing this, the man's an idiot, it wouldn't really matter. But our polling results continue to show that this is an issue that is becoming increasingly more important. And as the South African national government becomes more and more populist and more African nationalist, racial nationalist, then the issue grows. And when we polled in 2021, shockingly, 45% of black voters in the Western Cape felt that other races should behave as guests, and they weren't equal owners of South Africa, as the Constitution says. By 2023, this number had increased to 69%. And this is this prevailing view which absolutely has to be challenged. And that's what makes these comments by Manyi so shocking. So let's just bring that back. Let's put Manyi to one side for now. This is why the people of the Western Cape must be consulted in a referendum on Cape independence and given them an opportunity to defend their ideological values, to defend their way of life, and to grant them meaningful self-determination, so that whilst South Africa is governed according to its democratic will, the people of the Western Cape can go on and be governed according to their democratic will. And interestingly enough, people often then accuse Cape independence of being about racism, when in fact it's about exactly the opposite. And it's the opponents of Cape independence who are usually racist, and we can see this now from these comments from Manyi. And Cape independence is what's called civic nationalism. It's about the pursuit of a country based upon a set of shared values around our ideological affinity and based upon our voting patterns for the last 30 years. And actually, it's people who are opposing it and saying, hang on a second, you cannot have this country, you cannot have this new country in Africa, because this is Africa and actually it belongs to us. And that obviously is racial nationalism, and the exact opposite of self-determination and the protection of the rights of the people of the Western Cape. So look, if we want to preserve our way of life in the Western Cape, if we want to preserve our values that we hold most dear and to provide them for a future for the generations that come after, we simply have to separate ourselves away from South Africa to hold a referendum on Cape independence and get in charge of our own destiny. And if you think that's a good idea, and I absolutely do, then please vote for us at the Referendum Party, www.referendumparty.org, and we will do the absolute utmost to force the Western Cape Premier to honour the promise that was previously made by the DA to hold a referendum on Cape independence and allow the people of the Western Cape to determine their own future. Thank you.